right, it's coming. All right. What's going on, you guys? You up all night with your boy Deszi. I got one of my guests in here, man. Somebody who was just talking. I just realized how long we go back. I was young in this music thing, and I got my boy Kevin Bryant. What's going on, man?
What's up? Good to see you, though.
Man, you too. You still in the A. It's good to see you after all these years, man. I've been following you on social media. We've been probably hanging and seeing each other and clicking, seeing what we've been up to for years, bro. So here we are
Yeah, I bought a
connected.
car for you right there. I bought a car for you right there.
See, nobody knows. It's not just music. It's cars. I do it all, bro. I'm glad to have you here. People have been asking me, what are you doing? What are you going to talk to? I said, a lot of people in the car industry don't know I did music before I got in the car industry. They have this slightest clue because I don't sing a tune. I don't do anything. So nobody, it's crazy, man, but nobody knows I sing.
You had a little hit back in the day.
Yeah, my wife gets mad at me like, you don't sing in the shower, you don't. I said, the industry, man, it took me out, man. It took all the joy. It just, so, but
It can do that.
It can, but let's get to you. Let's talk about you, bro. We go way back. We just established. We probably started out knowing each other back. Man, I had to be either going from my teens going to my 20s, but it's back in the Itchabun days for those that remember Itchabun. You know, Vanilla Ice and a couple of. I've been stroking Clarence Carter. Some of y'all may know those names from that record back then. So we
Even Millie Jackson.
Millie Jackson, right? Which you back up song for, didn't you?
I was a background singer, yeah.
Yeah, it was in the play anyway. Y'all gonna find out. This guy does it all. He's a songwriter, vocal coach. He's a vocalist. He does everything.
Everything.
Hey man, I'm learning. I've been reading. Some Negroes can read nowadays. I've been learning some stuff about you, bro.
Okay, all right.
So we're gonna get to it. We're gonna start how you got to what you're doing now, and then we're gonna see from which you come. So we're gonna go back to the '90s because believe it or not, man, everybody wants us. They love us in the '90s, and that's what they're trying to get. That feeling. They'll never get it, by the way.
The 90s is where it's at. And it's so funny because when I talk to the artists that I work with now, I try to get them to realize that was good music. But they don't know what that is.
Yeah.
It's weird to me.
Yeah.
So, because when I started, I came here right when the 90s kicked in. I came here and I was doing talent shows. Bunch of talent shows. Yeah. And I was like in college, huh?
Go ahead. No, go.
I was in college, but I was always going to these talent shows, and I was just winning. So I was loving that. And
talent shows was everything.
That's how we all got discovered. And it's so funny because I was doing that, and then I started just winning, and then I went on tour first with Bobby Brown.
Okay.
You know, and I didn't know what I was doing. Then I started with Keisha Jackson.
Wow.
I never forget that. Like, I had this manager and we was doing these shows, and Keisha was a judge in a talent show. Mm-hmm. And she asked me one time, she was like, oh, I might want you to sing with me. And then ever since when she asked me that, I started touring with her. She was signed to Sony at the time.
Okay.
So I started touring with her, and then it was like, oh my God. I was going all these big stages and I didn't know what the heck I was doing. So we was on tour with everybody in the 90s, like MC Hammer, BHB, Jodeci, Gerald Levert. I mean, just everybody. So that's where I got the wealth of my touring experience from when I was with Keisha Jackson. And then I went on to sing background for her mom.
Mm-hmm. Which is?
Millie Jackson.
Yeah.
And there was a play called Young Man, Older Woman that was very popular. It was probably one of the first black plays to really like make a lot of money, like before Tyler Perry plays.
Tyler stuff,
Yeah, Millie Jackson's plays was doing that, and she treated it different than a regular play. It was like a concert on the road. Like it was a concert, but we just acted in it. So I mostly sung on everything, and she was on Itchabun. Well, she was on Jive at first, and then she went to Itchabun with the play.
Gotcha.
Because that is, Dad, I wish I had a picture of that to show you that cover. But
give it to me. I'm gonna put it up here.
Oh Lord, because she put all us on it. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
And it was just interesting touring, and that's where I learned everything. I learned a lot there. Right. And then that went on for years. I think from '92 to '96 that play lasted.
Yeah.
And then right after that, I got signed in '96 to a house label. Well, before I even say that, I want to acknowledge the fact that I was doing a lot of soul R&B.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna get to, man. Because early 90s, before you get to 96, there was one lady that came to Atlanta, and it was the beginning that really started us to where Atlanta is now, and that's LaFace Records. So you were doing some things. I got some names here, man. I'm gonna name some stuff because you background song for a lot of these people. Man, I see names like Macy Gray.
Oh yeah.
Jennifer Holiday, Martha Wash, Jill Scott, Erica Badu, Pebbles, Usher, TLC, Blue Contract. Hey man, you did some things. Of course, you mentioned Millie. How does it feel? Tell me how that went going through that face. I mean, that's like to me the Godfather of Atlanta. Go for it.
Right. Well, of course, Macy Gray wasn't necessarily on LaFace, but the LaFace artist, the one when I was here, I was singing a lot of background, and I was a reference demo singer. Okay. And I would go and like they would call us, and that came from being with Keisha actually, because they would call, and we would go into sessions with L.A. Reid and them. But it's an interesting story. When I first auditioned for Pebbles, I went in. I used to dance. I was a dancer. That's how I started. And I used to dance because I was trying to do whatever I could. Right. So I went in to audition for Pebbles, and the dancer there, Devon Stevens. I don't know if you remember him. You remember
I know Devon? That name. I know it is there. I can't put it together. It's coming. Keep going.
He was a choreographer. He did really well. Big ups to Devon because he always looked out for me. And I went in there and I started auditioning, and I got the gig with Pebbles. But it was so funny. I went outside and L.A. Reid was out in his car, and I had my little demo package. We used to have a cassette and a bio and a picture.
Yeah.
And K.O. and Daryl Simmons, they used to be in the deal. They saw me audition. And at the time, and you remember back in Atlanta, we had the bob hairstyles and stuff like that. I just thought that was popular, so that's what I did. Yeah. So they all saw me, and they sent me to L.A. Reid. And he was like, oh, yeah, we're going to do something with you. We're going to do something with you. So I used to get calls to come in and sing background on stuff, and with Usher. Like a lot of these songs never came out. I did some stuff on Tony Braxton, Donnell Jones. Oh God, did some stuff with artists that we don't remember. Like I ain't gonna name them because y'all don't remember, but there was a couple of LaFace artists back in the day that they never really materialized. Gotcha. But I was lucky to do that, and then it got to the point where I met up with Tommy Henderson, which was he was A&R at LaFace, and he was helping me a lot, and we became really cool, and we started working on my project. Right. But that never happened because, for one, it was politics, and we was trying to figure out where I fit. I was a little different, Right. I was singing around Atlanta, so I was really doing my thing, and I started doing all the jingles on V103. Right. Like I would do I started that jingle stuff, like way back. And from singing with Keisha and singing around all the clubs, we had chit chats, we had
I remember chit chat.
21 grand, all that stuff, 20 grand. So we had a lot of clubs and stuff to perform at, so I got to do that. But LaFace and them was going through their thing. So that kind of created, stuff that wouldn't happen for me. So I had these managers at the time, the same managers that Nelly had at the time. Okay. I'll never forget. And because I was in Millie Jackson's play, I was in New York, and I was going to do a demo in Louisiana. And I did a demo with my managers, and the engineer happened to be a house music producer. So he was like, yo, I see you on one of them shows with Pebbles. And I was like, yeah. He was like, oh, I want to work with you. So I said, well, I'll be in New York, with this play, and we can work together. So we literally started working on a demo for Pebbles, for Savvy Records, and my demo for LaFace. And it was cool. It was all R&B, all soul stuff. We was working on this. And then when I finished and I got back, and LaFace was breaking up. And I was like, oh no, I did this whole demo, and I'm like, I can't even get a record deal. Wow. And then Pebbles was like, don't worry, baby, we're going to sign you, whatever. So sent it to her. I don't know what was going on. But all of a sudden, the last song on that demo was a house record. Because it was funny because I used to always be asked to do house music. And I was like, no, I don't want to do it. Because even though it was from Jersey. Huh?
That was me, man. They tried it. It didn't fit for me. I should have done it, though, in hindsight.
Honestly, now that I know what I know and what the success, yes, you probably should have.
Yes.
But what was so funny was I never wanted to do it. So when I did that demo, he said, I want you to do a house record. And I was like, ah. And then he said, if you do one, what would you do? And I said, I don't know. What about I Know You, I Live You? Because, you know, around Atlanta, I used to sing a lot of Shaka stuff. Because, you know, I used to do that. And I was this little boy with this big voice.
Right.
So I used to try to, you know, do the stuff that I thought was difficult.
Right.
So he was like, well, what about Any Love? And Any Love became my first record because when I left Jersey and I came back to Atlanta, thinking LaFace is going to put me out. I got 2 songs with Babyface. And I'm thinking he going to, you know, they're going to put me out.
Oh, boy, I know that feeling.
This other label called and they was like, yo, you got a deal. And I was like, well, who? I'm still waiting on Babyface.
Right.
And it was like, it's a label called Strictly Rhythm. And I was like, who is that?
Right.
And he was like, well, it's a good stepping stone, but they're the largest house music label in the world.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I'll do it. So what was funny about that was I was living over by Perimeter Mall.
Yeah.
And I went over there and I was talking to the guy that working there. And he said, so when you going to get your record deal? I said, it's funny you say that. I just signed to a label called Strictly Rhythm. And he was like, oh. So it was another dude in the store. And he was like, Strictly Rhythm? You on Strictly Rhythm? And I was like, you heard of them? And he was like, yeah. And he opened up Billboard magazine. Dude, I saw all these records on the dance charts from Strictly Rhythm. So, you know, I got really stoked.
Yeah,
I was like,
oh, I'm good.
Yeah, so I was like, I'm out of here. So it came time I had to go up to New York and they brought me in there and I took my photo shoot and did all this. And I'll never forget this story too. I have so many stories, but I know I can tell you a few.
Yeah.
I started out with, it was me, Arrested Development, a group that you know now is Outkast.
Yeah.
It was somebody else. We were all managed by the same person and we would do these talent shows. But we were all winning our categories. And Arrested Development got signed and it came out with Tennessee. Right. And every time I would see Speech, he would always be like, yo, when you gonna get your record deal? And I was like, I ain't got one yet. But I'm singing all this stuff. And then he was like, the day that I signed my deal and when my record finally came out, I was in New York and I was holding my record in hand because at that time we did 12 inches. So I was holding it and I was walking down the street and guess who I ran into? Speech. He was coming. Yeah, he was coming from his record company and I showed it to him and he was like, that's what's up. So at that point then I started hearing, oh my God, my record's playing is blowing up overseas. And the first place was Italy. Then it went from Italy to London, to Russia, and I was like, oh my God. And it was just, that was the first part of that. So that first record, Any Love, which is still selling to this day, thank God. Which I don't get it because I came in at the end of when music was about to change. I didn't come in out with CeCe Peniston and Robin S. And, you know, I didn't get to do that. And I came out at the end. So music was changing in house music. It was changing in R&B. Everything was, so I got caught in the techno thing.
Gotcha.
So it started going techno. So it took me away from my Black audience.
Right. Yeah, I was about to say, that was, I'm looking at all the artists you were with. I'm like, man, how did he end up at house group? That was right. The face after that R&B was it. We took over the 90s. And then, you know,
that's true.
Then hip hop started emerging. Man. Well, hold on. We skipped the part though. Because you were in Virginia for a time. You was in Virginia. We were talking about my boy Spragg Williams. And you know that crew with the Teddy Riley crew. How did you connect anywhere there? And I think you went to school with somebody that people should know too.
You know everything. Well, first, I was there a little bit before Teddy even settled because I left New Jersey and went there. My parents got divorced when I was young, and I moved to Virginia. And when I was like 10 or 11.
Right.
And I just happened to move in a neighborhood that someone lives there too. There. Her name is Missy Elliott.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we went to school. Huh?
That's a big
What's
name.
a real name?
That's a big name.
Yeah. True. That's a big name. Yeah, and it's so funny because I was there in Virginia working on stuff, and that thing with Virginia didn't happen until like after I had already left and went back. And then Virginia started blowing up. But just to talk about going to school, Missy and knowing Timberland too, and Pharrell actually. Missy and I went to the same high school, and we used to do stuff together a lot of the times because we both thought we were bigger than Portsmouth. I mean, Portsmouth,
Gotcha.
Virginia is where it was.
Gotcha.
And we all thought we were bigger than Portsmouth. And I remember having a conversation with her because I left before her and came here. Yeah. And I remember she was in a group called Sister. And then she was talking about leaving. And she was going on to write. And she wrote for Raven Simone, which was here. You know, and I remember seeing her here, writing her song for Raven Simone. And we talked about that. And we talked about making it. And it's so funny because when she blew up, I was singing background for an artist by the name of Larnay. I don't know if you know who she is. She was in Arrested Development. Okay. She was in School Days, and she signed to Face and Tracy Edmonds' label. So I was singing background. I know Tracy. Dude, I be trying. Look, I was singing background for her, and I saw Missy at Wyclef's club, Tramps. And I said, "Hey, Missy, you remember me?" She said, "Of course I remember you, Kevin Bryant." And so we still keep in contact sometimes.
Cool. So that's cool, man. See, good story. You never know, man. Missy,
you never know.
Freaking Missy. All right, so let's get back. You wrote, you did stuff. You should have been on the face. You should have been a star there, but the stars was aligned for you to win the house, which techno, like you said, that came into play. So after you got there, you went overseas because obviously at the time you had to travel more overseas because they probably received you better than the States did at the time.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Like, I got a call one day, and I was told that, I went up to the label. I went up to the label because I wanted to understand what I was doing because they thought that I was an R&B singer trying to sing house. You see what I'm saying? That's what my A&R was like. Well, you're just an R&B singer trying to do house. And I'm like, yo, well, to me, it's all music. You know what I'm saying? Right. I grew up in church. House music sounds a little bit like church to me. Right. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, okay, I could do this. But what happened was the guy that was the rep over my particular, my A&R, he was like, I don't know what's going on, but your record is getting huge in Italy. And I was like, oh, can I go over there? And it was like, well, I don't know. It just started blowing up. And when I got calls, yo, you on Billboard? Oh, it's #1. And I'm like, the first time I went over there, I couldn't believe it, dude. Like, the clubs were so big, and it's a funny little teeny story. Like, I was over there, the promoters were driving me around, and they were saying, oh, we're going to the club to do a sound check. Right. But I saw like thousands of people in line buying tickets. So I was like, oh my God, who am I on the show with? Right. I just kept saying who I'm on the show with because whoever I'm on the show with, they must be big. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm used to the new artists opening up for the big acts. Yeah. So not living over there, I didn't know. So they kept looking at me and they were laughing. They were like, you really don't know, do you? I said, no. They said, you're really big over here. I was like, what? Dude, I literally had one record, 6 minutes long, and my first pay was $6,000. I'll never forget that. Yeah, so I've said I made $1,000 a minute. and it was crazy because everybody was just hollering my name and they couldn't speak English, but they were singing my record. So that was my first big, That's a memory you'll never forget. I never will forget that. I never will forget.
I would have never moved back. I was like, okay, I'm moving over here.
You know what? I shouldn't have. But that was around the time my grandmother had passed, and I was like, oh, I was so connected to the U.S. And I think about that all the time. If I would have stayed over there, I would have been like soul to soul or something. You know what I'm saying? But you know, we live and learn. But it worked for me though. It went from that record. I went and did features on other records over there. I've had 4 #1 records, you know, within my career. Yeah. Over there, and I dominated European territories.
That's crazy.
So I kept going.
It was meant. I mean, you found your destiny. It's amazing. You go from R&B, you probably you envisioned something else. God had something else planned for you. So
I still want an R&B record though. Yeah, just a soul record or something.
I'm right there with you, bro. I ain't gonna lie. It comes back to me every now and then. I hear something, and I'm like, I want to go back. I want to buy equipment again. I keep stopping myself.
You should just do it for the love. You never know. Just do it.
I should play it, man. You're right. He may have started it. Y'all hear any music coming after this, I guarantee you started it. It'll be credit to you. Now, all right, you did the touring, you did your stuff, your music still was charting, and you're still getting residual from it, which is good. Where you at now, man? Where did you transition from that time frame to now? How did you adjust in the music industry?
Well, the reality check was hard because I went from doing all of that back to a situation where the label strictly went under, kind of not under, they just merged with someone else.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that I was under Warner Brothers and all that stuff. And I couldn't do nothing for 5 years. It was just
Oh man, yeah.
crazy. So I was background singing, of course, my
Right.
first thing. And
Yeah.
I was on tour with Maxwell, and I was doing, I kept doing it.
Yeah.
Maxwell. I even did Tamar for a
Okay.
while, and I was in New York, and I was just trying to do what I did in Atlanta, New York, and I was just performing around and doing, local gigs
Right.
and going on tour. But what happened that was surprisingly around 2007 or 8, Strictly Rhythm got their rights back. So they put out this thing that they were coming back, and they put out their top 10 best vocal records.
Right.
So I'm thinking I'm through with the house music stuff.
Right.
So they put out their 10 best vocal records, and mine was one of them. And how I found out, somebody called me and was like, "Congratulations!" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He was like, "Oh, Strictly Rhythm coming back, and they put out their best 10 records, and yours is on it." And I was like, "What?" So that in return took me to having a new, career again.
Yeah. You're back in your world again.
Yeah, and that's when I signed with Launch, who was my old A&R.
Okay.
And then I put out a record called Who You Want to Be, which I can't even live that record down to this day.
That's a good thing. That sounds like a good thing to have, man. So what did that take you back overseas?
It took me back overseas a little bit. Then what it did was it kind of opened up different doors into television stuff, because at that now the digital age was out. So I was on TV shows, and the record was spinning in different like reality shows and stuff.
Right.
And the first one when I heard it myself was a show called Real World MTV, when they had the girl from London up there. And Who You Want to Be was one of her favorite records, and they actually played it. And Willow Smith. I remember there was some type of interview when she did I Whip My Hair Back and Forth. They was like, "Oh, what's in your iPod?" And she was like, "Oh, I'm really digging this Who You Want to Be by Kevin Bryant." And I was like, "Oh my God." So it was crazy. And then that record went to #1 because Bob Sinclair did the remix. Now Bob Sinclair is the producer that did Rihanna and Madonna. And so he did my record, and of course it went to #1. It's just that I didn't agree with the version that went #1. So
and that's
I was caught. Yeah, I was kind of caught.
Then you got to perform that.
And I hated it. And I always performed the original version because it was more musical, But when I went over there, I had to perform the Bob Sinclair version.
The version they're used to hearing, they want to hear.
Yeah, so that opened up a bigger door overseas for me, which took me into doing I'm Alive and a whole lot of stuff. And it really taught me how to maintain the territories, is what they call it. So, because that record, I was #1 in like 13 different territories. So it was a different thing for me. And it was just bigger than it was before. And I had to make sure my business was right. So then that took me into the kind of stuff I'm doing now. I'm what they call a star coach.
Okay.
I took,
do tell.
Well, because I didn't realize I was doing it for Usher. I was doing it for TLC. I was doing it with Kelly Rowland. And, I come from a performing arts high school, and my major was vocal music education. So I knew I would be a teacher, but I didn't know I was going to be a teacher. So what happened was when I was working with them, I would do stuff and say little things and come up with creative stuff that went on to be in their videos and everything else to help make them successful. So I was like, dang, I need to be doing this. So when I had to figure out creative ways to do stuff, I started doing vocal lessons for new artists and started teaching them. And then I started becoming their coach and just, helping them become stars. So that's what I'm doing. And I also delved into film. I did my first TV series. We just filmed it. Huh?
I said, get you now. What's the name of that one?
It's called We Are Fam. We just finished filming. It's being edited. I'm hoping, going into TV was totally different. My business partner used to work for Spike Lee. So he was always in film. So we just came together to do this. And I found out that I really like creating new talent. So I literally went out to cast new kids
Gotcha.
to act and to sing. And it's a show based around music. You know,
Okay.
they want to be stars. So the whole show is they come together to make a record company and they try to push one of the guys' girlfriends to be a star. So they go through all the troubles that I went through.
Gotcha. Know that
So
part.
yeah. And I also I produced 2 shows at 1079.
Okay.
I don't know if you saw it. It's called New Music Day and New Music Day Live.
I haven't, but I tell you what, I'm gonna check it out now that you said it.
Well, it comes on Wednesdays. I'm a part of a group called the Heat Seekers.
Okay. I saw that. I
And what
saw
we
you put it on there. Tell me about
yes, we are the go-to people for the hottest artists in the streets, and we're affiliated with 1079 and well, all the radio stations basically.
it. Gotcha.
And that's what we're gonna do because we realize that music now is missing something. They don't teach artist development
Right. Yeah, that's
anymore.
been long gone.
Yeah, but it's so needed.
Yeah.
It's so needed. So that's basically what I'm doing. I'm working on building new artists, discovering new artists. Secretly, I am working on a new project.
Good.
I'm with a label now.
Come back here when you get it ready. We're gonna do this again.
I'm with a label now called Sold Out House,
Okay.
and I've managed to tackle on Afro beats and the whole. It's fun now because now you can do anything.
Yes.
So I'm working on that. I'm working on. I have an entertainment agency and management company called Back to Black.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, let me show you. See,
Oh man, you doing it all. There you go. I like that, big dog. Okay.
Back to Black. Yeah, and so we have about 3 artists right now. So we're fostering new talent as well.
Cool. So you got a lot going on, man. You still in this industry. You doing it. You just on the other end now.
Yeah, that's true. And then I do the O end for fun, you know, because it's in me, you know.
Yeah, you can't shake it even if you wanted to. I agree.
What?
I can't shake it.
I know you can. We need to do your interview.
I know. All right, that's next.
Don't let him fool y'all. He was right there, you know. But you know, the demons of the business just keep us from really doing what we're supposed to be doing. So
yeah, I should have stayed in. I tell people I don't even blame the industry no more. It's on me. I should have been more passionate. I should have just took it. Yeah. I wish we had the outlets that we do now, man. Now you can just put your stuff out. It ain't about chasing the label and the stuff we have to do.
That's interesting that you say that because that's what we talk about a lot. The only thing that happens is because of that, artists now just think, oh, I can just put it out. So they go record it at home and upload it. Yeah. You got to mix it. Yeah. You got to have a plan. Yeah. You got to have a marketing plan. Yeah. You can't just put something out because everybody can do it. Yeah. So then you become invisible.
You got 20 people looking at it. That's it.
And see, that's what they don't teach no more. Now you acting as a label, but you don't know that. You know, because they don't see the stuff that the label did to get you ready.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. Oh, it definitely takes a push and it takes a vision. But there's more than plenty of talented people out there that can sing all day long. So.
Right.
So, hey man, listen here. I ain't gonna keep you long, but you gotta tell people some other stuff. Where can they hit you at if they're doing anything? Because you got a lot, especially with heat seeking. You know, people they're looking. So where can they find you at?
This is so funny. You didn't even get to ask me questions.
I didn't need to.
I don't like that. No, okay. Well, first of all, on social media, I am Kevin Bryant on everything. Okay. Like Facebook, Instagram, all of that. Heat Seekers INT on Instagram. I'm at 1079 every Wednesday. Okay. Our show comes on at 3:30 every Wednesday. Right now, because of Corona, though, we kind of, shut that down. But
yeah, I did. Hey, man, it's hurting everybody on there. But see, social media, just like what we're doing right now, we find other ways to keep it rolling. So that's how we'll push through.
I'm glad you're doing this because, there is no outlet. And the fact that you come from an era that we come from, we still need to have that out there. Like, I have so many artists like Trina Broussard, Anthony David, India Ari, Donnie, and Don B. All the artists that came from the 90s, we're still here. Yes. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We just need a platform. And I think if we really, really work on that, I think it can happen.
I am, man. I'm out there reaching out to all of them because I told people, I'm not ashamed to tell you, I'm stuck in the bubble. I love my 90s and I love my early 2000s. That's it for me.
That's you know what, me and Andre 3000 talked about some of that before. Like, where was music gonna go? You know what I'm saying? Still asking that.
And we're not gonna get it. There's still some great artists that's out there now. It's like you're saying, they need a platform to get out there, man. Like her. I mean, you got so many artists out there that's balling, but just not. They just for some reason they hit the charts like we did in the 90s, man. The media, the machine is not pushing them right now. That's all. I mean, so we know what it is. We're not gonna hide it. We know what it is. The machine is just not pushing them out there for whatever reason. So
for whatever reason.
But bruh, I appreciate it. You stayed up all night with me. We got light out there. It's Corona, y'all. We're gonna do this all day long. It's light outside right now. But listen here, come back while you're doing your stuff. If you have any artists, anything that you need to put through my venue, you know I'm gonna keep doing this, man. So you bring it my way. If they got talent and you vouch for them, I got you. You know you co-sign.
That's the thing. Hey, remember that. I got this new show I'm working on called Kevin Said It. So it's like I say the things that you think about. And if I say it, that means it's 100%. So I appreciate you and thank you. And I always knew that you would do something. And look, you doing it. So
I appreciate it, man. I may not sing as much as I should do, but I'm still involved in music. I still love it, man. I love seeing artists that's talented. I didn't even know what you were doing. I just found out you're doing tons of stuff. So I'm ready to hear your music.
No, that's the you can go listen to the
I want to hear your new stuff you recording on.
Oh, the new stuff. I'm gonna send that to you as soon as it's ready.
You're gonna make me do a house track. I'm gonna go back and do one just to see what would have happened had I did it in the house.
Man, I never did when you sent me something. I heard that. I was like, what? Okay. I'm
slipping, man. But we back at it. We're up all night. Your boy Kevin Bryant. You guys go check him out. There's people out there. Heat Secrets. You see it 107.9. Y'all check him out Wednesday at 3 p.m.
Wednesdays at 3:30.